everyone. In the following podcast, you'll hear the edited audio of Sienna's live Instagram interview with Gage Oxley, director at Oxygen Films. A Series of Light by Oxygen Films recently premiered, and Gage talks us through his creative process as well as sharing his advice for young people who are looking to join him in the film industry. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello.
Hi, Gage.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, coping, surviving.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strange place we're in right now, with like lockdown kind of seemingly ending, but not really.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a weird couple of months.
It has.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you in Scotland? Is that where you are?
At Leeds, so not
Leeds.
not too far down. Yeah, it's kind of just above Manchester. Yeah, you're around UK, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I'm in Suffolk, so
Nice.
it's not too bad over here, to be fair. It's been like easing quite a bit.
Yeah,
so,
and we've been enjoying some nice weather recently as well. It's been quite warm.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Felt like we've had a proper summer, so we're lucky. So if you're happy, we could just jump into some questions.
Yeah, more than happy. Yeah.
And you can find out a bit more about what you do.
Cool.
So for someone who hasn't heard of A Series of Light or yourself or Oxygen Film, then do you want to just give us a rundown of like what your role looks like on a daily basis?
Yeah, sure. So my role at Oxygen Films is, I guess, head of film, which is kind of like a really vague title. But basically that kind of just involves looking at the type of content we make, which is typically, Oxygen Films typically does a lot of LGBTQ plus content, or at least content that looks at representing kind of minority groups and people that typically on screen aren't represented as well. As there should be. And so, yeah, my kind of role is just kind of overseeing that and managing it with a small group of volunteers who are amazing. And on A Series of Light, which is our recent project, it's a 6-part TV series. I was the writer and director on that, which was great fun. Yeah, it was mad, but great fun.
Awesome. Okay, so as you say, Series of Light is your most recent work at Oxygen Films, and this kind of gives a platform for a queer voice and explores, like, each episode explores a different narrative.
Yeah.
So could you just tell us more about this premise and like what you were trying to do with these episodes?
Sure, yeah. So we started it near enough about a year ago, actually, now. And it just started as a conversation between myself and Jack Parr, who's the lead in the first episode. And at first it was just going to be like a typical short film, and then it just spiraled into this 6-part series, because why not? And because, you know, when I was growing up, I was looking at film, looking at the cinema to try and see myself as, you know, someone who is gay from a working class background in the north of England. I didn't really see myself around me, and so kind of dedicated myself to film in the hopes that perhaps I'd be represented there. And I think as part of what I wanted to, as I started to get my voice as a filmmaker, it was realizing that actually I have a bit of a responsibility to do that, or to do at least something similar. And so the series explores loads of different themes, some of them very queer and openly queer, and some of them a bit more subtle, but a lot of them about intimacy, digital connection, and just life in a modern world, to be honest, because, you know, I think it's something that we are seeing a lot of. There's a lot of conversation about kind of technology and where we're going as a world, and I think especially now more than ever, that's something that, you know, has really rooted us in, you know, the fact that I can talk to you over technology. Right. And all of my friends that I've seen over the last half a year has all been through a screen. It's just, you know, it's crazy, and it's something that I don't think is ever going to stop being relevant. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with the series, is just try and put our finger on the pulse of this kind of zeitgeist.
Definitely. Okay, so again, exploring like the characters that you're representing. As you mentioned, you wanted to give like a broad representation in A Series of Light. Like, why did you decide to highlight? I've been reading the blurbs of each episode on Oxygen Films. Like, why did you decide to highlight each of these particular stories in particular? Was there any like backstory behind that, and how did that like look like in your creative process?
Yeah, sure. So each episode itself is it's an anthology series, so each episode follows a very different character, very different storylines, and each one kind of has its own unique story about how it kind of came about, and a lot of it always come through the actors themselves. So as an organisation and as a director, I love just sitting down with actors and being like, what is the story that you want to tell? What is it that you want to do? And so with, for example, Red Light, which is our second episode, which explores this male escort who hooks up with this older businessman who then dies in the middle of the hookup, and it's like, oh no, what do we do with the body? And it's just, quite a fun, claustrophobic, psychological film, but that kind of came about through a conversation with lead actor Jake, and each character, it's interesting because each character I don't think is fully the protagonist or the hero, or necessarily even the villain. I think that's something that I love to explore, in that, life is complex. We are complex people, and we should be representing people as being, quite flawed, quite difficult. And I think especially for us putting in a lot of effort into looking at queer storylines, that we aren't falling into those stereotypes of the gay best friend or the gay hero. It is, you can be gay and be a horrible person just as much as you can be gay and be a lovely person. And I think our films want to kind of explore that a little bit and have some fun with it.
Definitely, that's really interesting to hear, kind of deconstructing the stereotypes, and super powerful, I think, as well. So, excuse me, before we move on to the themes that you explore, in terms of like, we did have a question, and we put a story sticker asking for questions for you, and one viewer responded and asked what work has inspired you as a director and a writer, both growing up and currently at the moment.
Oh, that's a tough one. The thing is, I have so much inspiration, like just kind of daily, just going through life. But I think in terms of a specific piece of work or director or writer, the one that inspired me to be a filmmaker was Robert Benigni's Life is Beautiful, which I saw when I think I must have been about 10, and it was the first subtitled film I saw, and I had such an overt reaction to the storyline. And I was like, if I can do even a quarter of what they did and make someone feel a quarter of what I feel right now, I'm successful. Like that's like kind of the basis of success for me. But more recently, I'd have said stuff like, Xavier Dolan and Gaspar Noé. In a way, I think his style's brilliant. I'm not too sure about his films. Lynn Ramsey, I love her content in her films, and her exploration of violence and the kind of the dark underbelly of the world, which I'm hoping we're representing too.
Definitely. Moving on to the themes that you already touched on, you say that A Series of Light talks about technology and like digital connection. And I just wondered, like, as you say, you started these films like a year ago, and I'm assuming you filmed them before lockdown, right?
We were actually on set. We've been filming for 10 months, and we were on the last day of the last episode, and that's when the lockdown came into place. We had one more day. It was infuriating, but obviously, we abandoned the set quite literally. Like all of our stuff, all of our equipment, everything was in location for the entire. And then as soon as it was safe to do so back in June, we then went back on, did that episode, and kind of did it in a very safe, socially distant way, which was interesting. But the vast majority of it was all pre-lockdown.
Wow, yeah, that must have been an interesting contrast for films. So I just wondered, like, in terms of the themes, like digital connection and also intimacy and how that functions on like a digital level. And I just wondered how you think that the themes have changed or like taken on a greater significance as a result of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely have taken on a greater significance because of the situation we're in right now. I think, pre everything that had happened, we'd never anticipate anything like this happening when we're writing it, at least, or even when we're filming the first 5 episodes. And I think that it's changed in the way that we look at intimacy, we look at this connection and this kind of not even romance as such, apart from maybe Starlight, but all of them look at this world where it's a modern look at relationships and presenting people as just being connected through digital spheres. And I think that was really prevalent back in December and January, but actually now more than ever we are constantly, we're even more so addicted to the screens, and like swiping and left on like dating apps to figure out who we should be seeing now. And it's like, there's a lot of power and brilliance in that. There's so much creativity and people finding their voices who probably wouldn't have had it before. But there's then also the other side of it, which is the dangerous elements, and it's allowing potentially the wrong people to have platforms. So, for example, in Blacklight, which is the 5th episode, we look at this kind of underground community of men who are basically misogynists, and it's that real seedy underworld which I had no idea about before kind of researching it, but it's massive. There's like tens of thousands of people who are a part of this, and I think now more than ever it's important that we shine a light on those kinds of communities and the people that are online.
Absolutely. And did you like explore both sides of that? As you say, like there's the positive aspect of connection and like people having exposure that maybe weren't exposed before, but then there's also sort of the negative sides. And was that something that you explored, like both facets of that?
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, in terms of positive exploration, I think it's something that, I think Starlight's probably as I said, one of the most kind of romancy, stereotypically nice content. I think it is really important to have those like peaks and troughs of, those real dark Black Mirror-esque. It looks at technology, but also then presenting this quite light-hearted, honest, and quite grounded approach to it. I think otherwise you just kind of, we don't want to just be like all bad and all negative and all horrible. We do want to have like, the joys of it as well. And that's something that I hope we'll be able to kind of continue with and see as we go into the second season.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just wondered, like, as you talk about the peaks and troughs and like having that narrative change, how you went about writing and directing these episodes. You mentioned that you sit down with an artist and talk about what story they want to get across, but like, what does your creative process look like from sitting down and writing a script to directing on set?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my creative process is hopefully still growing. Like I'm by no means I think I've got it yet. But what you said is, it's absolutely right. Like, I think it's good to sit down with the artists and the actors, and the wider team and just be like, just throwing ideas and seeing if anything sticks, if anything, is good. And I mentioned at the start that we are a voluntary organisation, so literally every single person, we're really keen on that. We're really transparent that no one gets paid. If one person gets paid, then we should all get paid. And I think part of another reason why I think it's good to chat with the actors is to be like, what do you want to do? Like, what can you get out of it? How can we help one another? And it is that kind of collaboration that not only betters the experience for them, but then also the story, because it isn't just my voice. Then it's it's a cohort of people coming together and feeling like they're able to present this real story, which is good. And so I feel really inspired by that and kind of get a lot of creative ideas from them. And usually I'll write it all down. My room for like 6 months will look like a serial killer's room because I've got like paper all over the place and like lines and drawings and stuff. And then, in fact, with a series of Light, we wrote each episode kind of one before. So we'd written green light and red light, and then we started filming green light. And then when I was on set of red light, we were writing the one after it. So it was like a very kind of organic creature. By the time we got to the end, somehow we'd written 6 episodes and filmed 6 episodes. And it was, I think that was really nice to do, actually, because, we're by no means saying that we're the best or like we've got nothing else to learn. And so as we went across the series, we were learning so much about what works, what doesn't. And it's a really interesting series. And I think from our response that we've had, people people are really different in terms of like which episode's their favourite, which is nice.
Yeah.
We've had a real diverse response, and that was kind of the hope when I was going into it for directing, because as a director you have to try and disassociate yourself from all of the other episodes, like the ones before and the ones after, and just focus on this direct story that we're trying to tell. Sure. And I think as a director, my job was made so easy because of the fantastic crew and cast that we were working with. The cast were just phenomenal. It made my job a lot easier.
Definitely. That's awesome. It's really good to hear about like that side of humility and like learning and conscious of that. And I think that's very encouraging to maybe like young directors or writers or actors who are also like not necessarily in early stages, but still trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wondered if you had any. Well, actually, let's ask. How did you get into a creative career, first of all? And do you have any advice for young people who are also looking to get into film industry? Like, what did the route look like for you?
Yeah, I I think in terms of, so I'll start with how I kind of got in. So I wanted to, I've known I wanted to be a film director since I was about 8. And for the first few years I was running around with little tape camcorders that and then I saved up for Christmas and birthdays to get props, and so I was making things about like zombies and aliens and whatever it might be. In fact, I've got like a folder somewhere in my room with like all my handwritten scripts in when I was back when I was 10. Hopefully I've got better since then, I don't know. but I'm kind of jealous of that imagination that I had when I was younger in a way. But as I kind of grew and realised, okay, this is definitely a career path I want to go down, it was just a case of doing things over and over again on no money, and that's actually really helped me now, because I still have no money, and it's really nice to be able to think, okay, this is how we can do this in a way that works, that's inexpensive or kind of begging and borrowing and stealing, which is really what we have to do as creatives and creators. But I didn't go to university. I didn't go to film school. I studied media at A level and didn't do very well. I did all right. I got a B, I think. But still, like in the grand scheme of things, I wasn't like academically focused, which a lot of my friends are, and that's definitely a path to go down. And so I guess that feeds into my advice, is just looking at how you respond to things. So if you're thinking, I want to go to university and study film, but you're not sure about the kind of theoretical aspects of it, then potentially just look at getting an apprenticeship or getting a job. Because I was lucky to get kind of straight into the industry by a job and just kind of work my way up that way. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of what is necessary is contacts and knowing people and knowing how to network. And I think you can learn that by going to university, but also just by being yourself and just constantly creating. Like, most people have a camera now. If you've got a phone in your pocket, you've got a camera, you can tell a story. That's the most important thing. So I think, my advice is just look at what you're doing and what's good for you, and don't stop making films.
Awesome. Thanks for that. It's very encouraging. I just have one question for you today, and it's, where can people go to find and watch A Series of Light and find out more about your work at Oxygen Films?
Yeah, sure. So A Series of Light is available right now on Amazon Prime in the UK and US, and I think it's going to be available in Japan and Germany later this year. I'm not too sure. We'll figure that one out when we get there. But you can watch that now. The 6th episode, which is Limelight, starring Bruce Hillenell, that comes on the 4th of September. That's like a special finale episode, because that was the one we got locked down in. And you can find more about us at Oxygen Films on my Instagram, which is at Gage Oxley, but also our company films. My lord, the company Instagram, which is at Oxygen Film. No S, someone stole that one. So that's kind of where you can find us, and we'll be posting a lot of stuff. And we are doing a series 2 as well, which is really exciting. We've been working a lot on that at the moment, so we'll be doing a lot of posts about that too.
Definitely, that's super exciting. Well, thank you so much, Gage, for joining me today. It's been great to find out more about the project. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Sienna. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Today's episode was made possible by Voice Magazine, an online platform for young people interested in art and culture. You can read Voice over at voicemag.uk and find it on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook as VoiceMagUK. The Voice contributors are also on Instagram over at voice.extra. If you are looking for another podcast to listen to, the contributors release the Voice Extra podcast every Saturday, where they talk about the pieces they've produced and the culture they've been enjoying. If you like this podcast, please consider helping us to make more with a donation of any amount at voicemag.uk/donate. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod for the use of the track Thief in the Night. You can find more of his work in incompetech.com. Tom Inniss was the executive producer.